Mayanta sat in the back of the transport, covered in bright red human blood and slightly traumatized. She couldn't stop thinking about what the human woman had said. All of it. She couldn't stop thinking about the side of her head blown open on the floor. And she couldn't stop thinking about what she had told her. She had mentioned why she became a Marine, but then there'd been a second story as well. She had finished that one up right before... well... Malnata looked at Agent Dagda. The crazy bitch was just as splattered as she was. She didn't have a care in the world. Awful as it was, Malnata sometimes wished she could be like Agent Dagda, just switch off the part that cared. Perhaps she'd sleep at night. About a year ago, Mayata sat in the back of a troop transport, checking her rifle over one last time. She just shipped in from the Crucible, overjoyed to be on the sex planet. It wasn't the tough-ass Marine posting she'd hoped for, but who was going to complain about this place? First mission, here I come, crossed her mind. She thought back to those Marines from when she was a kid, the way they just rode through her colony, saving everybody. Today she was going to make them proud. Alright girls, look alive! Sergeant Saquam stood up in the back seat. We're nearing the objective. For the last 2 years, this town has been plagued with rebel activity. The cell in this town is led by 3 men. Miles Chunky DeSade and his lieutenants, Chuck Straber and Carl Howler. The pictures appeared on the screen behind her. The 3 C's, Chunky, Chuck, Carl. The transports pulled up to the side of the road. The Marines jumped out. The Auto-Turox whirled to life and stood up, calmly stepping down. The sensor globe slowly rotated, taking in its surroundings. They were hoofing it the rest of the way. The townspeople didn't take kindly to armoured vehicles pulling up in the middle of town. Only a few of the Marines grumbled as they started the rest of the trek. Not Minata, though. Marines were tough, damn it. A little walk didn't hurt nobody. As they came up on the outskirts of the town, Minata saw a wall. It was covered with pictures of people. Below it sat various personal effects. What's that? Sergeant Saquam looked over. It's a shrine to everybody killed in the fighting. This liberation's a goddamn mess. Mayata looked again. Already stuck out to her now was all the toys and stuffed animals lined against the wall with all the other personal possessions. She shuddered. She rejoined her sisters in arms. We're approaching the town, Sergeant Saquam said. Keep your weapons ready. As they filed through the streets, Mayata could see everybody running to get inside. Occasionally a shout of, "Murderer!" or "Baby killer!" or "Why won't you leave us alone?" reached her ears. This was a far cry from the rescuing hero she knew. She wanted to reach out and say, "We're here to help." But that may have been a bad idea. People were moving around on the roofs. You see that, Sarge? As soon as Minyata opened her trap, a bunch of humans popped up from their hiding spots on the roof and opened fire. Minyata and the girls dove for cover. The Flexifiber could block human bullets, but the sheer volume of fire here could burn it out. Morel and Zraze were cut down instantly. Minyata kicked open a door to a nearby and ran inside, followed by her squad mates and the Sarge. Minyata ignored the protests of the house's occupants as she smashed out a window, firing on the insurgents. Mr. Prescott was an average man. Bald head, glasses, average skin toned. He had his ties arranged by the day of the week and sorted his socks by pattern. People around town also knew him for his wisdom and ability to read the room, so they let him speak for them when need be, like when the resistance gathered everybody in the town square. This was one of those moments. There stood Crazy Carl and a bunch of his men. What do you want, Carl? Is this another of those alerts where the invaders turned out to be a squirrel? Mr. Prescott fought every urge to roll his eyes. That kind of thing could get you killed around Carl. No, Carl stammered, wild-eyed. Chuck and the gang are fighting them right now. Mr. Prescott sighed. Do you guarantee our safety? That was a reasonable request, wasn't it? Not to Carl. Of course not! The change from stammering Carl to snappy Carl was night and day. He only lost the stammer when yelling angrily, "This is war!" So we just go home and pray? Somebody asked. Shut up, pisshole! Carl stammered again. It's Piss Shol A. I don't give a fuck what your name is, Carl howled. Somebody's phone rang. Whose phone is that? Whose fucking phone is that? Mr. Prescott sighed. Carl was coming off crazier than usual, again. Everybody fell for their pockets. And then the Pasadena boy looked up, terrified. It's my lab partner, the teenager squeaked. Carl just rolled his eyes and shot the boy in the head. His men stood there silently as Mrs. Pasadena started sobbing over the body. He could be a spy, Carl whispered dangerously. For them. Yeah, I'm sure. Unfortunately, Crazy Carl wasn't done. His guys went through the terrified crowd and dragged out every able-bodied man they could, ushering them into the back of pickup trucks. Once they were full, they drove away. Conscripts. Anybody who does not fight the Shaw will be considered an ally of the Shawvanti and treated as such, Carl yelled. Okay, I think you've got enough, Mr. Prescott ushered Carl away. Once the man was gone, Prescott came back, placing a hand on Mrs. Pasadena's shoulder. She stopped crying and looked up. Mr. Prescott reached into his coat and passed her a pistol. You know what you have to do, he said softly. Mrs. Pasadena accepted the weapon wordlessly. Mr. Prescott sighed. It's going to be a long night. Manyata and company were still in the house, fighting. It was all they could do to concentrate on the threats outside the house. As Manyata called her target, she heard a scream from behind them. She ducked away from the window and came across quite a sight. 3 women had jumped on Naxo and were repeatedly plunging kitchen knives into the Rakiri's back. Somebody help me! The big, fuzzy alien shrieked as the knives went in again and again. She fell to her knees and flopped over. Manyata and Saquam threw the girls off, smashing them against the wall, but it was too late. Nazo was dead. There was no time to mourn, however. Something smashed the window and burst into flames on the carpet. They had to get out of here. Manyata smashed shoulder first into a wall, bouncing off and falling to the floor. Immediately, one of the girls was upon her, trying to stab. Manyata grabbed the hand with the knife and held on for dear life, but the blade inched closer and closer. Son Saquam wasted zero time. She grabbed a telephone and wrapped the cord tightly around the woman's neck, pulling her off to one side and smashing the handset against the woman's head multiple times. The other 2 ran for it as the First Lady's brain oozed out. We can't stay in here, Saquam said. She fired into the wall before slamming her shoulder into the hole, widening it until it was large enough for a shield to fit through. They ran for it, unnoticed among the shooting. They ran and ran and ran and ran and ran. Once they were far away enough, Sergeant Saquam looked around. It's just us, he observed. We're all that's left. Yep. Manyata wasn't scared or horrified or anything. She was just depressed. That and filthy. Should we call for help? Saquam fiddled with her radio. Jammed. Fuck! Manyata looked around. We could use a human phone. Worth a shot, Saquam sighed. She knocked on the door. You do the talking. The door opened a crack. What do you want? The man behind asked. Hello. We're in trouble and need to call for help. Maybe use your... Manyata forgot the human word and pantomimed talking on the phone. Can you protect me from Chunky and his people if I do? I'm sorry, sir. Saquam took over before Manyata could say anything. We cannot guarantee that. The door slammed shut. I wonder what happened to the rest of the girls. Manyata was cut off by a spray of gunfire coming from the street. We got contact. She could see a motorcycle at the entrance of the alley. Shit! Saquam opened fire, knocking one of the riders off, but the driver opened fire with an automatic weapon, inching closer and closer. One of the bullets struck Saquam's rifle, shattering it. She and Manyata ducked behind a dumpster, but as the bike got closer, small holes started to appear in the metal box. Manyata feverishly looked around and closed her fingers on a garbage can. She yeeted the metal cylinder at the driver, slamming them in the face. The driver's helmeted head bounced off the dirty pavement. As Manyata got closer, the driver raised their gun once again, but she kicked the weapon out of their hand. It fired once as it clattered against the wall. Manyata was scared shitless as she brought her booted foot down on the driver's head repeatedly, feeling the helmet crunch beneath her, then wetness, as flesh and bone went as well. The driver's body jerked one last time. She stared at the body. This was the first time she could actually confirm she'd killed somebody. Back in the house, she just shot in the direction of all the other shooting. But here... She looked at her foot. It sat firmly planted, along a spatter of plastic and chunky red. Manyata! Saquam airwalled her a couple of times. We gotta run. People coming. You can feel bad later, when it's safe. Indeed. Annie Manyata could hear voices. She saw a massive crowd passing by. Insurgents? It was all she could do to keep her voice stable. Manyata alternated between wanting to burst into tears and... not. It seemed between the horror, she was just numb to everything else. The ladies ran. Chunky! Mr. Prescott bellowed. Get out here, now! Didn't I tell you to be respectful? Chunky asked, as he emerged from the house he'd been using as a safe house, flanked by his lieutenants and a bunch of his soldiers. I only protect you all from those purple barbarians. Hate for you to think I want to hurt you. The tiny, soft-spoken man hid a danger behind his tiny, soft-spoken appearance. A danger that oozed from every pore. Of course, that could have easily been Chunky's men pointing guns at the angry mob. You aren't protecting anything, Mr. Pacifist snarled, brandishing a shovel. The Chavanti don't want us. They're only coming for you, Miss Pack added. Everybody dead so far are your soldiers. They've left us alone, Mr. Pissel yelled. The Chavanti are a menace, Chunky said softly. Once we are gone, they will do as they please with whoever is left. You do as you please, Mr. Prescott yelled. You enslave us, you play soldiers, and we're the ones who get hurt. You will all be compensated for the damages once the... Carl stated. Compensation? Mr. Prescott spat. Compensation? I don't want compensation. I want my sons back. I want my wife back. You ruined my family. You killed my baby, Mrs. Pasadena shrieked, as she raised Mr. Prescott's pistol at Carl, squeezing the trigger.